Hello and welcome. Have you ever experienced a situation where someone says or does something that immediately triggers feelings of anger, frustration, or annoyance? Would you like to become immune to these negative emotions and maintain your composure regardless of what happens around you? Imagine living in a state where nothing and no one has the power to unbalance you, a mental state where insults, criticisms, and challenging situations no longer affect you as they once did. It might seem impossible, but the Stoics achieved this. And today, I will reveal how you can too. In this discussion, you will discover a Stoic principle that, if applied, will completely change the way you react to life's challenges. You will learn to view things from a different perspective, one that allows you to free yourself from anger permanently. The best part is that you don't need years of practice or a retreat to a mountain to master it. It's something simple yet powerful that the wise Stoics used to achieve unshakable peace. However, there is a key detail that almost no one mentions, and therein lies the real secret. Stay with me until the end, because I guarantee that after this, nothing will bother you in the same way again. Before we continue, I have a challenge for you. Go to the comments section and write, "I will never get angry about anything or with anyone." This simple yet powerful act is the first step toward your absolute transformation. Now, let's begin. The first strategy is to recognize that you cannot control others. The root of much of our anger and frustration lies in an illusion, the belief that others should act as we want. We expect people to treat us with respect, to be fair, to understand us, and to react with gratitude. But the reality is that each person has their own worldview, emotions, and decisions, and the truth is, you have no power over them. Stoicism teaches us that we can only control our own actions and thoughts, nothing more. If you live expecting others to change so that you can be at peace, you are condemning yourself to a life of constant disappointment. But if you shift your focus and accept that each person is free to act as they wish, and that you are free to decide how to respond, then you reclaim your power. Imagine someone yelling at you or criticizing you unjustly. You can lose control and react with anger. Or you can remind yourself, I cannot control what this person says or does, but I can control my reaction. Instead of getting angry, you choose to remain calm. Your peace does not depend on anyone but you. Letting go of the need to control others frees you. It allows you to release the burden of resentment and frustration. It helps you accept people as they are, without unrealistic expectations. And most importantly, it gives you the serenity of knowing that even if the world is in chaos, your mind remains firm, calm, and unshakable. Before we continue, I would appreciate it if you could like and share this discussion so that it can reach many more people. And if you don't want to miss any of my future content, subscribe and activate the notification bell. The second strategy is not to take anything personally. One of the biggest mistakes we make is believing that what others say or do is a reflection of our worth. When someone insults us, rejects us, or treats us with indifference, we feel they are attacking us personally. But the truth is this: the actions of others have more to do with themselves than with you. Each person acts from their own history, traumas, beliefs, and emotions. If someone is rude, it's probably not because you deserve it, but because that person is dealing with something within themselves. If someone criticizes you without reason, it's a reflection of their inner world, not yours. When you understand this, you stop taking things as personal attacks and start seeing them for what they really are: expressions of others' mental and emotional states. Imagine someone yelling at you without reason. You can react with anger and return the same energy. Or you can pause and ask yourself, is this really about me? Most of the time, the answer is no. Their reaction is a product of their frustration, fears, and internal battles. It has nothing to do with you. Taking things personally robs you of peace. Every negative comment becomes a wound, every bad attitude an offense. But when you decide not to absorb others' negativity, you become immune to it. There are moments in life when emotions surge like a tempest, sweeping away our rationality, clarity, and peace of mind. Among these emotions, anger often reigns supreme. It arrives without invitation, boiling beneath the surface, urging us to speak, act, and react before we've had a moment to reflect. Anger has a seductive quality. It convinces us that we are powerful, that we are standing up for ourselves, that justice is being served. But when the storm passes, and silence returns, we are left with its true aftermath: broken relationships, heavy regret, and an overwhelming fatigue that no amount of righteous fury can justify. Throughout history, sages and philosophers have grappled with the nature of anger. They've asked questions that remain profoundly relevant today. What purpose does anger serve? Is it possible to live without it? Can we transform this fiery energy into something that uplifts instead of destroys? Among the many schools of thought that have attempted to answer these questions, Stoicism stands out for its pragmatic wisdom. Rather than commanding us to suppress emotions or ignore them, Stoicism invites us to examine them, to explore their roots, and to determine whether they align with the life we wish to lead. One of the core strategies offered by the Stoics, and echoed in modern psychology, is the idea of questioning the usefulness of our anger. This practice is not a dismissal of emotion, but an interrogation. When anger arises, we are asked not to react immediately, but to pause and ask a fundamental question: will my anger change anything? The brilliance of this question lies in its simplicity. It pierces through the heat of the moment, dragging the emotion into the light of reason. Often, when we are honest with ourselves, the answer to that question is a resounding no. Anger, for all its intensity, rarely leads to productive outcomes. It might offer momentary satisfaction, yelling back at someone who insulted us, slamming a door to make our frustration known, but these actions rarely solve the underlying issue. More often than not, they compound the problem, creating more damage to repair. And yet, time and again, we return to anger as a reflex, as though it were the only available tool. This is where the practice of pausing becomes crucial. The pause, a brief, conscious moment between stimulus and response, is the foundation of emotional mastery. It is the difference between living reactively and living intentionally. In that pause, we are given a choice: to react impulsively, or to respond with wisdom. This pause is not always easy to take. Our egos clamor for defense. Our hearts pound with urgency. Our bodies demand release. But within that space, however brief, lies our greatest freedom, the freedom to choose who we want to be. Learning to pause is not an innate ability, it is a cultivated discipline. It requires self-awareness, humility, and above all, practice. At first, we may only succeed in pausing once in a while, but each time we do, we strengthen a muscle that grows with use. And over time, what once felt unnatural becomes our default mode of operation. Instead of being swept away by every insult, inconvenience, or frustration, we learn to stand firm, observing the emotional wave without being pulled under by it. Epictetus, a prominent Stoic philosopher, taught that it is not events themselves that disturb us, but our interpretations of them. This insight shifts the entire paradigm. It means that the power lies not in the world around us, but in our own minds. We cannot control what others say or do, but we can control how we perceive it and how we respond. An insult is only powerful if we grant it significance. A betrayal only crushes us if we allow it to define us. When we internalize this principle, we begin to reclaim our power from the external world. Imagine, for a moment, that someone cuts you off in traffic. The typical response might be an outburst of profanity, a honk of the horn, a spike in blood pressure. But what if, instead, you paused and asked yourself, is this really worth my anger? Would shouting at a stranger who cannot hear you improve your day? Would your rage make traffic move faster or the driver more courteous? Likely not. All it would do is poison your own mood and tighten the knot of stress in your chest. And for what? A momentary inconvenience? Anger often masquerades as strength. It makes us feel assertive, dominant, even heroic. But in truth, anger can be a sign of weakness, a loss of control, a surrender to the primitive parts of ourselves that haven't yet learned to coexist with uncertainty and discomfort. True strength lies not in yelling the loudest or retaliating the fastest, but in maintaining composure when everything inside urges otherwise. To be calm in the midst of chaos is a rare and beautiful form of power. Moreover, unchecked anger rarely exists in isolation. It tends to spill into other areas of our lives, infecting our interactions, decisions, and even our health. Chronic anger has been linked to heart disease, high blood pressure, weakened immunity, and anxiety disorders. What begins as an emotional response gradually becomes a physical burden. The body remembers what the mind refuses to release. By learning to question and manage our anger, we are not only preserving our relationships, we are protecting our well-being. It is important to clarify, however, that Stoicism does not ask us to become emotionless. It does not encourage apathy or indifference. Rather, it calls for discernment. There is a time and place for righteous indignation, for standing up against injustice, for defending those who cannot defend themselves. But even in these moments, anger must be tempered with wisdom. Reacting blindly, without foresight or strategy, often undermines the very causes we aim to support. A controlled, intentional response is always more effective than a reckless outburst. The Stoic path offers us tools to navigate life's inevitable provocations. It teaches us to pause, to reflect, to question, but most importantly, it teaches us that peace is always within reach. Not because the world becomes less chaotic, but because we become more grounded. Every time we choose calm over chaos, reflection over reaction, we strengthen our inner fortress. And in doing so, we begin to live, not at the mercy of our emotions, but in harmony with our higher selves.